So, the UK media has officially entered its maybe if we manifest hard enough, they'll come back era. Because over at the Telegraph, we've got Rowan Pelling gazing into her royal crystal ball and declaring, "Call me a dreamer, but a reconciliation with the Sussexes might be exactly what the firm needs." Let me just say this clearly. We are past dreamer. This is full delusion with a side of nostalgia and a sprinkle of institutional panic. Let's get into it. First of all, the idea that Prince Harry and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, are just sitting in California waiting for a palace callback, waiting by the phone like it's 1999, hoping the institution will finally text back, is the most unserious narrative the British press keeps trying to sell. These two did not crawl out of that institution battered, smeared, stalked, racially attacked, and publicly dissected just to sit around thinking, you know what would be fun? Going back to that exact environment that nearly destroyed us. No, they left for survival, for peace, for safety, for autonomy, for their children's well-being, for their sanity. They didn't leave on a whim. They didn't leave because California weather is nice. They left because staying was untenable. And now, because the monarchy is wobbling like a Jenga tower missing several key structural blocks, suddenly reconciliation is being pitched as a strategic masterstroke. Not for Harry and Meghan, of course. Let's be clear about that. This isn't framed as good for them. For the firm. Let's translate that headline into plain, honest English. It actually reads, "We kinda need them back." That's it. That's the entire subtext. The same institution that briefed against them for years, that allowed palace sources to anonymously trash them in the press, the same system that allowed Meghan to be dragged through some of the most racially loaded, vicious, dehumanizing media coverage of the modern era. The same palace ecosystem that let Harry twist in the wind while tabloids monetized his mother's death, his trauma, his mental health struggles, his every vulnerability. Now, we're supposed to believe the solution to the monarchy's cascading image crisis is inviting back the people you systematically mistreated. The audacity is almost artistic. It's so brazen, it's almost impressive. Let's talk about why this reconciliation fantasy keeps resurfacing in UK media. Because it's not random. It's a pattern that reveals something crucial. The monarchy is dying. William is preparing for a role he seems increasingly uncomfortable with and not fit for. The working royal bench is thin. Public trust is thinning. Poll after poll shows declining support, particularly among younger generations who simply do not connect with hereditary monarchy. Younger generations are not exactly lining up to bow and curtsy. They're questioning why taxpayer money funds palaces and ceremonies while public services are strained. The cost of living crisis makes gold carriages and coronation pageantry look slightly ridiculous, if not obscene. And globally, the idea of hereditary power, of someone ruling simply because of whose womb they emerged from, feels more like a historical artifact than a necessity for governance. The monarchy has a relevancy problem, a youth problem, a diversity problem, a modernization problem. Enter Harry and Meghan. They are modern. They are globally recognizable. Arguably more recognizable than any working royal, except maybe William and Kate. They speak fluently about mental health, racial justice, community impact, climate, humanitarian work. They operate effectively in international humanitarian spaces without the suffocating choreography of palace protocol. They move freely. They collaborate with global organizations, World Central Kitchen, WHO, Invictus Games, their own Archewell initiatives. They build platforms that feel current, relevant, aligned with 21st century values. And that contrast with the stiff, formal, tradition-bound working royals, it's loud, it's visible, it's undeniable. So when a Telegraph columnist floats the idea that reconciliation might be exactly what the firm needs, what she is really inadvertently admitting is this. The monarchy's brand refresh requires the very people it pushed out. That is not a love letter. That is not sentimentality. That is a strategic confession. The institution failed to modernize, failed to adapt, failed to protect its most valuable contemporary assets. And now it's realizing, too late, that those assets are thriving without them. That's what this is really about. Not reconciliation as healing, not reconciliation as family reunion, reconciliation as brand management, as institutional survival strategy. Now, let's address the bigger, more fundamental issue that UK media keeps refusing to acknowledge. Harry and Meghan do not need the monarchy. Read that again. Let it sink in. Really process it. They do not need it financially. They've built their own income streams through production deals, speaking engagements, strategic partnerships, investments. They do not need it socially. They have access to anyone they want to connect with: global leaders, celebrities, humanitarian organizations, tech founders, cultural influencers. They do not need it professionally. Their Archewell Foundation operates independently. Their production company has creative freedom. They choose their projects and partners. They have agency, real agency over their lives, their work, their family, their time. And most importantly, they have peace. Meanwhile, the monarchy needs what? Optics, youth appeal, diversity, modern relevance, global credibility. So when British commentators start daydreaming about reconciliation, it is not because they suddenly discovered empathy for Harry and Meghan. It is not because they've had some moral awakening about how the couple was treated. It is because they discovered necessity. The institution needs them more than they need the institution. That power dynamic has flipped, and that flip is what's really driving this reconciliation fantasy. And let's talk about abolition for a second, because people clutch their pearls whenever someone says the word like it is blasphemy, like it is unthinkable heresy. But institutions are not sacred simply because they are old. If age alone justified existence, we would still be using leeches for medicine and bloodletting for disease. We would still have divine right monarchies across Europe. Age is not argument. The British monarchy is a relic of hereditary privilege. It exists because of lineage, not merit. It is fundamentally undemocratic. You cannot vote it out, you cannot choose it, you cannot hold it accountable through normal democratic mechanisms. It is funded by taxpayers who are increasingly questioning why they are subsidizing pageantry, palaces, and ceremonial carriages while the NHS struggles, while schools need resources, while public services strain under budget cuts. And here's the uncomfortable truth that monarchy defenders hate hearing. Harry and Meghan leaving did not weaken the monarchy. The monarchy weakened itself by showing exactly, precisely how it treats members who disrupt to carefully managed narrative, who speak honestly, who refuse to silently endure abuse. They exposed the machinery. They pulled back the curtain. They showed what happens when you don't play the game. When Harry spoke openly about trauma, about institutional coldness, about the invisible contracts between palace and press, about conversations questioning his son's skin color, about lack of support when Meghan expressed suicidal thoughts, that was not betrayal. That was testimony. And testimony changes perception permanently. Harry didn't attack the monarchy because he's vindictive or ungrateful. He described his experience because silence was no longer sustainable, because speaking was survival, because his truth needed telling. And that testimony revealed structural problems that cannot be solved with better PR or strategic reconciliation. They require actual institutional transformation. The UK media wants to spin this entire saga as a Hallmark movie. Prodigal son returns, family reconciles, all is forgiven, balcony moment restored, Britain celebrates. But life is not a Christmas special. Reality is not a fairy tale. Real reconciliation requires accountability. It requires genuine apology, not mistakes were made, passive voice nonsense, but actual acknowledgement of specific harms. It requires structural change so the same patterns don't repeat. It requires admitting that what happened was wrong, that the way Meghan was treated was unacceptable, that the lack of support was a failure. Have we seen any of that? Any accountability? Any apology? Any structural change? No. What we have seen instead is selective amnesia and strategic longing. It is fascinating, genuinely fascinating from a media analysis perspective, how the narrative has shifted. For years, headlines insisted Harry and Meghan were irrelevant, washed up, talentless, desperate for attention, fading into obscurity, finished as global figures. Remember? Nobody cares about the Sussexes anymore. They're over. They've lost all their relevance. They're desperate. Now, suddenly, they are the missing ingredient to institutional survival, the solution to the monarchy's problems, the key to modernization. Pick a narrative. You cannot have both. Either they're irrelevant nobodies who don't matter, or they're essential to the monarchy's future. The fact that UK media can hold both positions simultaneously, that they can declare the Sussexes irrelevant while also writing articles about how desperately the monarchy needs them back, tells you everything about intellectual honesty levels. And let's be absolutely clear about something else, because this needs saying. Wanting the monarchy abolished is not radical extremism. It is a legitimate political opinion held by millions of people in Britain and across Commonwealth nations. Many Commonwealth nations are already actively re-examining their ties to the British Crown. Barbados became a republic in 2021. Jamaica is moving in that direction. Australia has ongoing republican movements. Several nations have transitioned to republics without the sky falling, without civilization collapsing, without losing their identity or culture or values. The world did not collapse when empires ended. It evolved, it modernized, it found new structures more aligned with democratic values. The idea that a nation's stability depends on a hereditary family occupying palaces is fundamentally outdated. Ceremonial roles can be replaced with elected or appointed figures. Governance does not require tiaras and thrones. Harry and Meghan stepping away was not an attack on Britain. It was not betrayal of the country or its people. It was a refusal to be consumed by a system that demanded silence at the cost of well-being, that prioritized institutional protection over individual humanity. And if the monarchy truly wants modernization, maybe it should start by examining why two of its most globally popular, most effective, most contemporary figures chose freedom over proximity to power. That is the real headline. That is the real question worth asking. The UK media keeps portraying potential reconciliation as a generous offer, as though Harry and Meghan are the ones missing out, as though they're sitting in California feeling regret and longing. Let's observe actual reality for a moment. They live in California sunshine, not gray British weather and relentless tabloid rain. They raise their children privately, without every school drop-off becoming a photo opportunity. They engage in causes they choose, aligned with their values, without needing palace approval. They speak when they want to, about what they want to, without clearing it through communications offices. They build ventures and partnerships aligned with their principles, not royal protocol. They sleep without worrying about what tomorrow's tabloid smear will be. They wake up with agency over their own day. Meanwhile, royal life is what? Rigid choreography, constant constraint, endless scrutiny without autonomy, every outfit analyzed, every expression interpreted, every word parsed for hidden meaning, every decision requiring institutional approval. Why would anyone voluntarily return to that? Seriously, why? There's also something deeply revealing about how quickly reconciliation becomes desirable when the institution feels pressure. It was not desirable when Meghan was being attacked daily with racist and sexist coverage. It was not urgent when Harry begged for security protection for his family and was refused. It was not prioritized when harmful narratives spiraled completely unchecked. It was not important when Meghan expressed suicidal thoughts and received, by her account, no institutional support. But now? Now that the monarchy faces relevance questions, now that public support is declining, now that the institution looks stale and out of touch, now reconciliation is suddenly a potential strategy worth discussing. That timing tells you everything. It reveals that this is not about family, not about healing, not about what's right. It's about institutional need. It's about optics. It's about brand management. And here's where it gets really interesting from a systemic perspective. Even if reconciliation happened in some polite surface-level way, some carefully staged photo opportunity, some joint appearance, some public handshake, the structural dynamics would remain unchanged. The palace-press relationship would still exist, that invisible contract where favorable coverage is exchanged for access and exclusives. The hierarchy would still exist, William and Kate at the top, everyone else supporting players. The expectation of deference, of silence, of never contradicting official narratives, that would all still exist. The systems that hurt them would still be operational. Harry and Meghan left precisely because those structures were immovable, because the institution chose preservation over reform, because individual well-being was always sacrificed for institutional protection. So, unless the entire system transforms fundamentally, unless the monarchy dismantles its relationship with tabloid media, unless it creates genuine accountability structures, unless it prioritizes people over institution, reconciliation would just be a photo op with unresolved foundations. And I do not see Harry and Meghan trading hard-won peace for optics theater. Let's talk about happiness, because it's visible and it matters. There is a calmness in how Harry and Meghan move now, a grounded energy, a lightness. When you watch them at public events now, whether it's Invictus Games, humanitarian visits, or Arkowell initiatives, there is ease, genuine ease. Not the forced smiles of people performing duty, not the stiff protocol laughter of people playing roles. Real ease, real joy. Harry laughs freely. Harry seems lighter, younger even, than he did as a working royal. Their body language is relaxed, connected, authentic. That does not look like people yearning to return to constraint. It looks like people who survived something difficult and chose something better, something healthier, something aligned with who they actually are. And here is the part the monarchy loyalists absolutely hate hearing. If the monarchy struggles without Harry and Meghan, that is not their responsibility to fix. They are not PR consultants for an ancient institution. They are not emergency reputation managers. They are not obligated to save an institution that failed to protect them. They are individuals who made a boundary. A healthy boundary. A necessary boundary. And boundaries are healthy even when, especially when, they inconvenience powerful systems that expect compliance. The dream of reconciliation says more about the monarchy's vulnerability than about the Sussexes' intentions. Because when an institution starts fantasizing about the return of people it dismissed, when it starts longing for those it failed, it signals imbalance. It signals need. It signals awareness that the future requires more than tradition and pageantry. And maybe that is the real fear underneath all this reconciliation fantasy. If Harry and Meghan continue thriving independently, continue building meaningful work outside the institution, continue demonstrating happiness and purpose and impact without royal titles or palace support, it proves something radical. It proves you can leave the crown and still matter. You can reject inherited power and still wield influence. You can walk away from hierarchy and build your own platform. You can choose agency over tradition and not just survive, but flourish. That narrative threatens the fundamental mystique of monarchy, because monarchy depends on inevitability, on the idea that there is no alternative, that this is the only way, that royal life, despite its constraints, is the pinnacle of human achievement and status. Harry and Meghan are living proof that there is an alternative. They are the alternative. They are evidence that legacy does not have to equal loyalty to a dysfunctional institution, that service does not require a throne, that global impact does not require a palace address. So when columnists like Rowan Pelling dream about reconciliation, here's what I actually see. I see bargaining. I see nostalgia for a time when the monarchy controlled its narrative more effectively. I see an institution slowly realizing that relevance is not guaranteed by history or tradition. And if abolition conversations continue growing louder in Britain and across Commonwealth nations, that will not be because of Harry and Meghan leaving. It will be because people are fundamentally reassessing what leadership should look like in modern democracies. Institutions survive by adapting to changing times, or they don't survive. Harry and Meghan adapted. They pivoted. They built new structures. They healed. They chose differently. The monarchy is still debating whether accountability is optional. That is the fundamental difference. So no, I do not think Harry and Meghan are packing their bags for a return tour. I do not think Montecito sunsets are being traded for gray palace briefings and tabloid harassment. I do not think freedom is being swapped for formality and constraint. And honestly, good. They chose joy. They chose autonomy. They chose to protect their family. They chose peace over proximity to power. If the monarchy needs reinvention, it can start internally. It can examine its toxic relationship with tabloid media. It can evaluate transparency and accountability. It can consider real structural modernization. But it cannot outsource its survival to the very people it systematically failed. That chapter closed. And maybe that is what unsettles commentators like Rowan Pelling the most. The realization that the fairy tale ending they are imagining doesn't belong to the institution. It belongs to the couple who left and flourished. That is not a tragedy. That is evolution. And if the monarchy cannot evolve, history has a way of retiring institutions that refuse to meet the present. Harry and Meghan are not going back. They moved forward. And honestly, watching them build something freer, healthier, more authentic, and self-directed, that is the real story, not the reconciliation dream, the independence reality. Thanks for watching, everyone. If this resonated with you, subscribe for more reality-based analysis. Let's keep celebrating their actual lives, not media fantasies. Until next time, stay grounded in reality, not delusion. I'll see you in the next one.